How we doing there, boys and girls? Manthieus here, and welcome back to another video. So recently we took a little bit of a look into logging and how to get it leveled up in a speedy and efficient way. So I thought today might not be a bad idea to have a look at what you're going to be doing with that freshly chopped wood. Now, if you're looking for the advanced endgame guides, make sure to hit that like button, stay subscribed, and I'll have that out to you as soon as I can. Most of the refining trade skills tend to work in a similar way, so a lot of the info in this video will also be useful to know when the time comes to level up your smelting, your leatherworking, your weaving, or your stone cutting. But let's dive straight into our local wood shop and take a look at some of the recipes that we have to play with. So there are going to be three main categories for woodworking. We have the refining, we have the conversions, and we have the downgrades. Now, refining is going to be your bread and butter of the trade. This is going to allow us to take the raw resources from logging and allow us to turn it into some more regular used material for either further crafting, or of course you could sell this on the trading post. Conversions, these are going to give us the ability to take some of the crafting reagents from other trades and turn them into something useful for us personally, which in this scenario will be sandpaper, but we'll talk about these a little bit more so in a minute. And then finally we have the material downgrades. This is going to provide us the ability to take the higher level materials, in this case for example we have ironwood planks, apply a reagent to them and extract some of the original materials from them. This may not necessarily be too helpful for us whilst leveling up, but is going to prove to be quite beneficial as we get towards the end game. Now, the first big thing to understand is that every increase in tier of materials also requires the previous tier before. So here, for example, we can see that to craft lumber, we actually also need the previous timber. This is okay though, because we do actually gain experience all the way up to the max skill of 200, even by crafting basic timber. Now, of course, the experience is listed just under the craft button, and as you can tell though, the lower tier materials do offer considerably less experience, but of course some is better than none. Now, at the start, you're going to only be able to craft the timber. You'll have access to this up until skill level 50. This is done with nothing more than just the basic green wood that you chop down from the young trees, but once lumber is unlocked at skill 50, things start to change ever so slightly. Now we need not only the aged wood, which is acquired from logging the mature trees, but we also need the timber that was previously crafted, and it's also at this point we get introduced to sandpaper. Sandpaper is one of the refining materials that you can often loot from supply containers whilst travelling the world, or of course you can choose to buy it from the trading post. The issue most people are going to run into is the limited supply of this, as you don't actually acquire this directly through logging. This is probably going to end up being the bottleneck or the choke point for many who wish to level their trade skills in a somewhat self-sufficient way. Make sure to drop a like on the video, leave a comment if you wish for me to do a video on some optimal farming routes for these. Alternatively, set up maybe a buy order at the trading post to allow you to buy some of it cheap if you're in not too much of a rush and are happy to let somebody fulfill your order over time. The sandpaper though has different tiers, and this leads kind of quite nicely onto another one of the core mechanic of the trade skills, the ability to change the craft, or the chance, to craft additional items. Now, this chance can heavily be affected by the tier of the sandpaper used. For every one tier above the base tier of the material you're looking to craft will grant a massive 50% boost. That sounds complicated, but in reality it's not too difficult. If we look at lumber just real quickly, if we place a basic piece of sandpaper, you can see nothing changes, because sandpaper, coarse sandpaper is tier 3, lumber is also tier 3. If we place a fine sandpaper, which is a tier 4 material, we're only trying to make a tier 3, you can see the proc chance increases. But adversely, this works in the opposite direction as well. So if you're using lower quality materials, you can see we start with a 7% chance on the weirdwood planks, but we choose to craft it using only coarse sandpaper. You can see it actually takes 5% chance off us. This is not going to be too much of an issue initially, but is something that you probably want to overcome eventually. Sandpaper, though, is not the only way to improve this chance. Your base woodworking skill also increases the chance by 1% for every 10 levels you have. Ultimately meaning that at skill 200, once you've capped this out, you'll have a base 20% chance to craft the items. Weirdly, though, not all the materials start at 0. Now, whilst timber starts at a 0% proc chance, you can see at lumber, we only have a 10% proc chance. I'm still gaining my 12% proc chance because of my 120 skill points in woodworking, but lumber starts at minus 2%, something that you're going to have to overcome to even get to 0. Crafting with an equal level of sandpaper is going to have no effect on it, but if we were to craft with a higher grade, you can see that's where we get that 50% buff. 50% on top of the default 10 for my woodworking skill, or on top of the 12 to be truthful, gives us a resulting chance to proc an additional item of 60%. Now this is going to provide a nice little bonus for those at higher skill points. It increases the overall materials that you will craft from a similar number of materials than a lesser experienced crafter. This is also going to have compounding effect for those that wish to craft all of their materials, as this proc chance applies at every level of crafting. So there's not too much more to it for woodworking, but to leave you with some final words of advice on woodworking, I would suggest that you try and do it at the same time as logging. Logging is without question the time intensive grind. But being able to supply your own raw materials for high-end crafting is going to be a massive bonus, and of course going to give you the greatest bonus because of the proc chances on the materials. Eventually, when you get to the really high-end stuff, you're going to need lots of the base materials, which in turn, because they all require the previous materials, is huge amounts of materials. So being able to craft all of this yourself is a big bonus for sure. Additionally, I would also pay quite close attention to the tax rates. Now, tax rates, nobody likes taxes. Who likes taxes? Nobody. Of course they don't. Nobody likes taxes, but they do exist. And these tax rates are going to add up really, really quickly. We're not crafting just 1 or 2 items here. We're crafting like en masse. We're often crafting hundreds of these at any single time. That small tax rate is going to be a bit of an issue eventually. Feel free to move around the world, take a little look at the tax rates in different maps. I mean, I'm currently in Everfall for no other reason than just because I am, but it would be more sensible to be in a town where you've got better standing with them to help reduce those tax rates. Finally, when it comes to the sandpaper, it's almost definitely going to be the bottleneck for your skilling up, so make sure you check the prices in other towns, and don't be afraid to travel before you buy it, or better still, place a buy order in those towns where you commonly see it being sold, and then you only need to check back as and when you need it. But there are some gear perks, there are some player housing buffs, and there are even some consumables that can help boost your woodworking, but I'll leave those for more of an end game advanced guide. Be sure to check out my recent early game logging guide if you've not already, while I get to work on the next one. So leave a like and stay subscribed for more content around New World and MMO and economies. I've been Manthieus though, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.